there are a few things that made me feel as old and understand how old I've gotten than in teaching about 9/11 to students who were not alive for it.
Oh,
Like it was a profound moment of my career early on, admittedly, that it's something I remember like it was yesterday. Everyone who was alive remembers exactly what they were doing, right? And for them to have zero concept, not only of that day, but what life was like before and how much has changed, really was profound.
and that's hard to teach too.
Very hard to get that across.
Sure.
Takes some real effort. And considering where we're located, there's a lot more connections than I think a lot of places that somewhere elsewhere in the country might not have.
Yeah.
And to talk about this in this context, I think is a very important thing that just we don't get it now. It's not the same, especially the younger viewers who had not lived through it.
Right.
I think it's important to talk about, and that's what we're going to do next on Ugly Threads.
Welcome back, sports fans, to another episode of Ugly Thirds. Today's topic will be honoring 9/11, Johnny's Jersey stories. John and Shrem, John, take it away.
So it's certainly a different tone to this episode,
Sure.
right? I mean, you shouldn't be glib about this topic, no matter how long it's been.
No. But how many people realize that there was this brief moment in hockey history where we crossed over into this topic, into this situation with something Jersey related?
Yes. The jerseys actually have a story in here. And we're not going to get into the history of what happened. You can find plenty of that all over. But with the deadliest attack on American soil, 2,000 more than 2,000 lives lost. The big question was what now? Baseball had these profound moments of can we carry on and play?
Oh, President Bush going out and throwing out the pitch at Yankee Stadium, like that is etched in your mind.
Absolutely, Rudy Giuliani and SNL, like, can we be funny again? And Giuliani saying, when were you ever funny? Why would you start now? Like, can we laugh again? And so the whole country trying to pick itself up on 9/12 with a whole new resolve that we need to do something, and yet we have to get back to our lives and continue.
Right.
But at the same time, you can't just pick up like nothing happened. Right. And I think all of these places, all of these things had exactly that. And hockey in its first game, which was October 5th, if I do recall. It started the season, sure. Right? That we got to do something. And at Madison Square Garden, the Sabres were playing the Rangers, two New York teams.
In the most iconic arena in the world.
And that you have to do something special. Mm-hmm. And they did. And you can watch this entire game on YouTube. The whole thing is there. The pregame, if you want to cue up the slides, Phil. So this is the Sabres brought out a big surprise with they took the goat head off the main uniform and placed New York. Mm-hmm. Obviously it's about New York and that's where everyone is, right? Next slide. And there was a whole thing.
For me, this is the picture. Like from this game, if this is the George Bush throwing out the first pitch for me, but the hockey version. Like this is.
I mean, what a consummate leader of Mark Messier, right? Yep. It's someone no one has ever questioned. Where the first responders and celebrating that was something that was so above and beyond. I mean, if you think to try and get close to a modern example, nurses in the pandemic, right at the height of it, and celebrating those hospital workers, those healthcare workers. This was, I think, even above that because it was very specific to New York and those people who ran into those buildings. It was. Whereas the invisibility of a pandemic, you don't see the virus and all the politicization. This was apart from that. You see flames, you see rubble, and people ignoring their own safety to run in and take care of that. To call out that those are the real heroes in a time when sports heroes was probably at the height of the idea.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
My hero is a baseball player. My hero is a hockey player.
Like sure. and for Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky,
the list goes on in that era, right? And for this to be, this was probably one of the first times where we're not the real heroes. Right. Those are the heroes that put on other uniforms and go into harm's way.
That's wonderful context.
Yeah. Next slide. And then the Rangers with a slightly different uniform. We'll talk about that. And they added a patch that is both a ribbon, which was all the rage then, and I do believe it is meant to evoke the Twin Towers. I don't know the full design story behind it. I don't know if I've ever seen a full design story, but it was a nice thing that was on these shoulders for that season. Bring it back, Phil. I think that's the last slide.
So
I want to get the elephant out of the room. So this is the Adidas Team Classic. The Rangers wore this in the late 70s, early 80s. It is not the same jersey because it's the 70s and 80s had the stripes with the blue in between, which they wore until 94 at least. And it's on the sleeve stripes that are the modern sense where there's no blue in between. So it isn't perfect, but it is a good stand-in for this episode. This, which is in your collection, Trems, is the special one.
Yeah.
And what we really wanted to talk about.
And this is, to be clear, my goal is to have every Sabres jersey ever worn on ice.
As one should.
This is one that, unless I buy game worn, it doesn't exist.
They auctioned off the originals for first responders related charities.
Yep.
And those are the ones that exist to my knowledge.
Yes. I've come across 2 in my time to try and find, because for me, a Grail has to be special because you can go out and have a jersey made these days. There is rarely anything that you can't have made or you can't find. So the term for me, white whale, Grail jersey, it's murky. This would be my Grail jersey, to have a game worn 9/11 jersey. I've come across 2. One, I offered the guy $700, and he told me I was about $3,700 under what he was looking for, which was embarrassing. The other one was a Stu Barnes jersey that was on sideline swap for a long time, and it was going for $10,000, which is fair.
It is such a special moment.
Right.
It's iconic to the people who remember it.
Yep.
It's associated with such a big event. It's beyond even Stanley Cup jerseys. So this was something truly special.
So I had this made by Keener in Canada. I found a blank AirKnit CCM template and built on it from there. Hardest thing about this jersey, finding these shoulder patches a la carte.
Oh, you had to find those separate?
Yeah.
Wow.
This thing came blank, and I pieced it together over time. And Keener in Canada, he's in Winnipeg, unfortunately. And a wonderful job.
Put a good look at it. And Phil, you want to just get in and just get a good look because it's the Sabres font.
Yeah.
Right. So it probably wasn't the hardest thing for a manufacturer to do because it's the same as what's on the back.
Yeah.
Colors are a bit different, but to have that loaded up would not be the worst thing. But I mean, like, what a cool and interesting look. You want to talk about story jerseys? This is one of those.
Yep.
You wear this, people recognize the goat head. Like, that's a goat head jersey. But why does it say New York?
Right.
And
I rarely wear this. This is one that kind of stays away that I needed for a collection for my own self-worth. But to be honest, wearing that out and about, I'm iffy on it.
I mean, there is Pravda. There is a certain, like, do you really want to evoke that memory?
Do I want to have that conversation?
Without good reason, right? If you're going to the right place. I mean, the 9/11 Memorial Museum was one of the most profound places I've been.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate it's underneath the towers, and it's both each tower is its own piece of the museum, its own thing.
Yep.
And outside they had all these things. They had a damaged fire truck. They had a quilt made by children, and it was like all these just things. And like, okay, that's very interesting things, but you haven't told me a story. And then the one building, it was a photo of every victim. And let me tell you, that hit hard.
Well, I imagine it does.
But it still didn't tell a story. And I'm like, I'm teaching kids who weren't alive for it. They don't know the story. And I was actually getting upset that they botched it. And then I got into the last tower and went through it, and it went minute by minute in incredible detail. And I was on the verge of tears for most of it. Like, it was.
I can see that.
It was amazing as an experience, and I highly recommend. And I think that. Like and my initial thought is, would you wear this there? And I almost like, you weren't there. That's not part like it might
not
even
for me
be
to do.
right.
Nope.
Right.
Nope,
This is something that exists in a collection because you needed to complete the collection, and it is and maybe if you have a connection and you have a meaning to it, you were like I worked with someone who was in the towers, right? Like that's something for them to step up and this is an amazing piece, but what a lot to go with it.
Yeah, this for me completes a collection that very few people up until this point have seen this jersey in my collection.
Tell us what you think. What would you wear this? What context is it okay or not okay to wear this? I actually would love to get some opinions on this because what a unique piece, what a unique thought. How often does a jersey have that kind of weight to it?
Right. And what's strange to me is that the Rangers didn't do outside of that patch. Um, this has been a part of their team history.
Right.
It's not something that was special for that point in time.
And if they'd even worn the white jersey with New York, which I don't think ever existed, that would have been something at least a little different.
Right, but this at least existed at some point in their history. This did not.
No.
So by going to KeyBank Center and wearing this, to me, I'm making light of a situation in a time that is very somber.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could do it. I don't know a context in which I felt comfortable doing it.
Yeah. It's
if we were doing some sort of memorial, if we're coming up on X amount of years and they do something to commemorate this so many years later, I'd feel comfortable doing it. But I don't know if we would do something like that.
Genuinely curious about the comments. What do you think about this discussion?
Yeah,
there's a lot of places to go with this, I think. And I really want to know.
Yeah,
like that's a good discussion
for
piece.
sure.
So with that, he's Shrems. I'm John. Never forget. And Phil, take us out.
Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the bell so you get notifications for upcoming videos when they're posted. And tune in for another episode of Ugly Thirds.
Lest we forget.